stretch fours, so maybe that'll pan out. And then finally, the Mavericks, who waste no time in locking up Porzingis to a max deal, 5 years. I do like the Seth Curry signing for them. I think it's much needed shooting. The Portland Trailblazers are going to miss him, but he gets paid $8 million a year to go back to Dallas to kind of play with Doncic in the backcourt. They give Kleber a deal. So Mavericks, another team who could compete for a playoff spot if Porzingis comes back healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was a lot higher on the Mavs at the beginning, and then and this is something that happened a few times, when I saw the details of the Powell and Kleber signings, I was a little bit less pleased. I think they kind of overpaid those guys a little bit. Really like the Seth Curry move, but you do feel like, I mean, we talked about this before. It feels like they may have locked themselves in a little bit to this core with what they're paying Dwight Powell and Kleber. So that feels a little bit short-sighted, but so be it. Some other roundup. We had Paul Millsap to the Nuggets. They end up bringing him back, which was a little bit surprising, but clearly they felt like they weren't going to get anyone. And I think that actually ended up being an okay move, Jason, because when we look at how quickly things moved in free agency, I'm not sure they would have gotten a better guy. So I think that actually probably ended up being okay. Any thoughts on that move for the Nuggets?
I thought it was necessary. You know, you have Joker, you have Murray, who they locked up, and they got a young core. They have Porter and Bol as a couple projects that could end up turning into pretty good NBA players. So the Nuggets are right there. I think they're the team to beat in the West now, given that Durant's gone and no one knows what the hell is going on with Houston. So right now I would peg the Nuggets as the favorites in the West, with Portland not far behind them. And we'll see what Golden State and Houston do. Again, I'm not sold on the Lakers, and we'll kind of get into the meat and potatoes now. So I'm happy with what the Nuggets did. I think Millsap is a perfect signing. He could still play. He could still go for 20 on a given night. But I think it's time, because we've been at it for a long time tonight. There's been a lot to unpack, but we have to get to our heat check of the week.
Here's a heat check. Fireball. You don't like that. You don't like NBA basketball. Bang! Bang!
There is one free agent left who might be the best on the market given Durant's injury. That's Kawhi Leonard. There are two teams left with cap space and the team that could potentially lose him. So it looks like a three-horse race for Kawhi. I know that it may feel like the Clippers are out of it, but you got the Lakers, who he would flip the NBA on its head if he goes to play with LeBron and AD. You got the Clippers, who have a nice core. They re-signed Patrick Beverley. They just got Rodney McGruder back. They have a nice core there with Harrell and Gallo, and they got some pieces there. So my thoughts, Benjamin, is that I think he's going to end up going to the Clippers. I know everyone's saying it's Lakers versus Raptors, but I think, the star power in LA, I think it's too much. Kawhi Leonard is not that type of guy to go to a super team with LeBron and AD. I mean, it would be amazing to watch, but it doesn't make sense for the league, because how in the hell would the Lakers fill out their roster? If he stays in Toronto, they got a chance to run it back. But with the way the Bucks and the Sixers have made moves, the Raptors are no sure thing to make it out of the East again. So I do think it ultimately ends up being the Clippers. But what do you say about this whole thing?
So I think I felt like going in, it was Clippers, Raptors. I really did feel like that was how it was. And now I think it's 90-10 Lakers. I think the Lakers, I really feel like this is almost a done deal. I think the Lakers, it's Kawhi or bust for the Lakers. If the Lakers miss out on Kawhi Leonard, this entire project that they've been doing is a disaster. There's no other word for it. It is a disaster. They are a fringe playoff team at this point if they do not get Kawhi Leonard. Between an aging LeBron, a complete lack of depth on the rest of the roster. I mean, whether or not at this point they get Kawhi, there's no one left on the market to get, Jason. If they miss out on him, they're going to be getting guys like Marcus Morris, who incidentally play the same position as basically all of the players on their roster, because Kyle Kuzma, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis all prefer to play the power forward position. Someone like DeMarcus Cousins, who is obviously not there, and Danny Green, who's pretty much said that he's just going to go wherever Kawhi Leonard goes. So if they lose out on this, they're going to run back the meme team, and they're basically going to have lost all of their young pieces, and they're going to have to just hope next year some free agent deigns to give them a meeting. I think that they have to go absolutely all in. Meanwhile, to me, for the Clippers, I can't see, if you're Kawhi at this point, why you're going to go there. If you think it's bad on the Lakers, you might not make the playoffs if you go to the Clippers. I don't think
any team Kawhi Leonard plays on is a playoff team.
I don't know if I agree in this case. I think the West has gotten a lot better, and the Lakers were not a playoff team last year. The Clippers were the 8th seed last year. The Spurs were right there with them. To me, there's a lot of those teams below them are a lot better, and the Clippers had a lot of good health with Danilo Gallinari, and they had quite a few games of Tobias Harris. So I think adding Kawhi Leonard and what they've lost, I'm just not sure that they're a playoff team. Maybe they get in there and they're the 6th, 7th seed, but I mean, you've got to think Kawhi Leonard is going to rest a lot of games. I'm just not sure. I mean, that's tough. And I just can't see why, if you're Kawhi, you would go there as opposed to the Lakers. So to me, it's Lakers-Raptors. I give the Raptors, like a 10% chance, but I think it's Lakers. I really do. And to me, that opens the door for the possibility, Jason, of a first really in NBA history of 3 of the top 5 players in the league. I mean, we might have to go back to the 60s Celtics before we can find another team that has 3 of the top 5 to 10 players on one team. And that was a league that had about 8 teams total, Jason. And now we're potentially going to see it again if Kawhi goes to the Lakers, because suddenly we will see LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, and Anthony Davis on the same team, Jason. I mean, let's just say he does go there. What would you make of that team?
I don't know how else they'd fill out their roster, to be honest with you. I mean, it'd be, like I said earlier, it'd be awesome to watch, but then who's playing point guard? I mean, I know they got Troy Daniels and Jared Dudley, so that's 2 roster spots. What do they have, 5 guys under contract? If you've seen their summer league team play in Sacramento, some of these young players are not fit to be on NBA rosters. So that concerns me. Where would they fill out their roster from? They still need a couple point guards. I thought Derrick Rose would be a spot for them. He went to the Pistons, decided to chase the money, which I don't blame him for. I know last week when we did our predictions, we both said 1+1 deals for Kawhi to stay in Toronto, run it back one more time. But you know what? If he was going to do that, he probably would have made his decision by now. The fact that Kawhi Leonard is taking this long bodes very badly for the Raptors, and it's just making a 2-team arms race in LA fighting for his services. They're the only 2 teams with money left, so it's going to be very interesting. But, with the Lakers, like I said, would it be exciting? Sure. But when you have 2 of the 3 guys on load management and a third with a ton of mileage on his legs in LeBron James, I mean, could they be championship favorites? Sure. Vegas thinks so. But their lack of being able to fill out the roster, very difficult to do.
No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, man, it's going to be really interesting to see what he does, because Kawhi now holds all the cards. If he goes, I think that if he goes to the Raptors with all the moves we've seen, I think that they have to be the favorites going into next year if he goes back to the Raptors. I mean, don't they, Jason? I mean, ultimately, there's no team in the East that has demonstrably improved themselves besides the Nets, and they're not going to have Kevin Durant in all likelihood next year, or at least at full strength. I mean, I think they have to be favorites in the East. Meanwhile, the Warriors have fallen off, and I don't think any of the other teams have stepped up. I mean, I think you could make the case that if he goes to the Raptors, you have to give the favorite status to either the Raptors or the Rockets. Those, to me, would be my 2 favorites if he goes to the Raptors. What say you?
Yeah. I mean, I think the Raptors would have a chance to run it back. With Siakam, Gasol, Lowry there, Ibaka. But I think Kawhi knows that he'd have one more chance at another ring, or he could go to LA and compete for years. But like I said, I don't know what's going to happen with the Lakers if they do get Kawhi. And then you said the Clippers would be a middle-of-the-road team with him. So for him being the best available player on the market, I mean, you can find good and bad with any decision he makes. And we kind of saved this for the end of the show because maybe some news would break tonight. I think he might pull a Kevin Durant in 2016 and make his decision on America's birthday. I mean, that's an option. I don't know. The good thing is, though, we broke so much down this week that at least next week, hopefully we'll have a Kawhi decision and be able to kind of just fully dive into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we should have the decision next week. I mean, I really think at this point it's Lakers. I mean, I just feel like if you're the Lakers, I mean, we're gonna have something really interesting to discuss next week, regardless, because one of the questions I posed here was who needs Kawhi the most? So we can talk about where is he going, but when you break down these teams, who really needs him? And if you look at the teams, Jason, for the Raptors, if they don't have Kawhi, at the end of the day, they got their title. No one is going to be upset. No one's going to kill him if he leaves. At the end of the day, it'll be fine. If he doesn't go to the Clippers are a young team, lots of draft assets. They can run it back, try and do this next year. If the Lakers don't get Kawhi, Jason, they have now lost their opportunity to get anyone else. Suddenly they will be staring the idea of Anthony Davis, Kyle Kuzma, and LeBron James as the only real players on their roster, and they will have to spend an outlandish amount of money on 1 year and 2 year deals to fill out the rest of the roster for below average starters. And that would be an absolute disaster, as I mentioned, because I don't know how the Lakers could recover. With all the bad press they've had, this would be the low point for them if that happens, because they now suddenly become a team that will be scrounging for a lower playoff seed with 2 of the top 5 players in the league because of how poor the rest of the roster construction is. And it will be of their own creation by having waited this long. So while I understand them waiting for Kawhi, they are playing a very, very dangerous game, Jason, if they don't know that he's coming.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because they started the offseason with a bang. They locked down that trade for Anthony Davis before the draft, and then they end up taking the biggest risk, I would say, outside of Kevin Durant going to Brooklyn with, given his Achilles situation, is that now they set their sights on the player who is taking a really long time to decide where he wants to go. He's got every right to do that. He's a smart guy, Kawhi Leonard. But now they're watching as all these free agents going off the board, and they're waiting and waiting on Kawhi, and there's going to be not much left to fill out their roster with. I mean, what are they going to get, Jamal Crawford and Vince Carter, with Jared Dudley, and expect guys in their mid to late 30s, Carter in his 40s, to play big minutes? I mean, Carmelo Anthony's out there. I think he's kind of waiting, but he's going to want to get on a team next year. It's going to be interesting. And then who the hell is going to be the point guard in L.A.? So it's a huge risk that the Lakers are taking for sure.
Yeah, and this really underscores too. I mean, especially if he goes to like the Clippers, you could really have a situation where there's 13 teams competing for the playoffs, Jason. I mean, the Suns are not a real playoff contender, but they might fancy themselves one at this point with the moves that they've made. I don't think they're there yet, but the Grizzlies are really the only team who is obviously not going to try to win basketball games next year. Again, I don't think the Suns have done enough to really take themselves out of that bottom rung, but they're going to probably win a few more games. I mean, if they have good health, they're going to be up. I mean, you're going to be talking about 13 teams who really might want to make the 8th seed, Jason, which is just incredible. I mean, we thought that there was depth to the conference last year, and now it's going to be even more of a bloodbath, and that's going to be so much fun to watch. And then on the other hand, obviously the Eastern Conference now is the best that it's been in. Whew, I mean, I'm trying to think, Jason, when the Eastern Conference was as talented from the top to the bottom as it is right now, and it's been a while. If Kawhi comes back, you're gonna see one of the most talented Eastern Conferences we've seen in quite some time. I mean, is this the best since maybe the 90s? I mean, could you make that case?
If Kawhi goes to the Lakers, then it's really pretty much the same hierarchy because you have Kevin Durant moving east and Kawhi going back west. If Kawhi stays with Toronto, the only major player that switched conferences so far is Kevin Durant. Al Horford went to an East team, left. Ditto for Kyrie Irving. Ditto for Kemba Walker. So all these guys are staying in the East. It's just going to be a different pecking order of teams. I think the Hawks got a lot better. We don't know what to make of the Pistons or the Magic or the Pacers, but It's not like these marquee guys are changing conferences. They're all going to teams within their conference still. So the East is still good, but I think it's going to be a similar